From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast. It is Tuesday. It's beautiful here in upstate New York. And I had an amazing weekend. I was in Lake Placid with my 14U travel baseball team. We got shellacked. We finished 1-2, did not make the playoffs. And I wrote a little mini blog about it that you might be exposed to in my newsletter. Maybe I'll throw something on Facebook or LinkedIn about it too. But long story short, as a coach, as a parent, I tend to harbor some of the mistakes that we made, some of the losses, some of the errors, some of the strikeouts. But when you ask the actual players, they have memories like goldfish, right? Like you guys have seen that Ted Lasso scene, literally walking off the field at the end of the game, that it's already out of their mind and they're more focused on s'mores and the hotel pool and cliff jumping and, pizza at the Lake Placid downtown pizzeria. And, sometimes I get jealous of how quickly they can forget about things like that. And, it's a lesson that I need to learn from them. But another lesson that I need to learn and what I want to unpack with you guys today is this fault that I have of repeating things so often in my own mind, in my own heart, in my own head, that for whatever reason, I just assume that everybody else knows it or understands it. And this became relevant for me over the last couple coaching calls. I had a prospective one-on-one coaching client reach out to me. And we started talking about what it would look like to work together. And, I kind of go into my spiel and I was like, we'll tackle whatever fires that you need to put out in the short term, but eventually we'll really need to unpack the foundational principles that I believe in. And literally as soon as the phrase came out of my mouth, they were like, well, what foundational principles are you talking about? And part of me wanted to be like, well, the ones I talk about all the time on the podcast. And I kind of said something like that in the most respectful way possible. And he still was a little curious. So again, because I'm a huge fan of extreme ownership, I started to realize, I do talk about foundational principles all the time with my coaching clients in the group coaching platform. But from a podcast perspective, I kind of touch on them here and there, right? Hit or miss, right? I could talk about one specific thing over an episode, but not give you context on how it relates with all of my foundational principles. And those of you guys that have taken the servant leadership course, you've gotten exposed to this a little bit, but I just thought it would be cool to unpack an episode, and maybe this will be two episodes, depending on how long it gets, about what my core 10 foundational principles are. And these are foundational principles that I feel every practice, every business owner, every organization should really focus on. Now, the nuances amongst each one are going to be very, very different from practice to practice and dentist to dentist and business to business. But at a high level, I think if you're being coached by someone, or if you're even being self-coached and you're trying to figure it out on your own, these 10 foundational principles are what you need to be thinking about and what I'm constantly referring back to as I'm developing a relationship with a coaching client. So the first one, and there's 10. So the first one is vision and purpose, right? And don't glaze over. Don't be like, more of this soft stuff, right? It's so, so, so important. So we lump vision and purpose in. Vision is, where do you want to be in 3 years? Now, we can talk about where you want to be in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. I just feel that life moves so quickly that really documenting a vision beyond 3 years is unrealistic. So when I'm coaching my clients, I want them to have a crystal clear vision for the next 3 years. And it could be strictly financial. Like I want to do this much revenue. I want to be this profitable. It can be in terms of employees. I want to have this many employees. I want to have this many locations. I want to do this type of dentistry, whatever it is, right? There's no wrong answer. And this is the one area where you truly, as the owner, get to decide. Now, a lot of times docs will be like, well, I want to bring my team in on this. And I'm okay with that. But the reality is you're the one that took on all of this risk, all of this debt, all of this time in school. Your team, and I'm not suggesting they would do this, your team can leave you tomorrow and go work up the street. So your vision needs to be you, or ideally you and your significant other, your spouse, your family. So have some clarity with what the hell you're doing. Like where are you going? Develop a map. It's impossible to get to a certain location if you don't know where the hell you're going. I was just on a call with a coaching client last week, Sean, and he kind of came to the realization that he was chasing a goal that wasn't his. He used a phrase that I've commonly used. He got to the top of the ladder, realizing that it was leaned up against the wrong wall. And nothing's worse than that. Nothing's worse than grinding and grinding and going to work every day and getting after it, only to realize like this isn't really what I wanted. So take a step back and make sure that you have true clarity with your vision. And along with that is your purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? Obviously you're doing it to support your family, you're doing it to make money, but there's got to be a bigger purpose. It could be as generic as, we want to be the premier dental office in the community, right? Or you guys have heard me talk about my purpose. I really am trying to figure out a way to create amazing opportunities for team members in multiple communities and develop enough revenue and profitability to give back to these communities at an irrational level, right? That's what gets me out of bed. Now, my vision and purpose are going to be very, very different than your vision and purpose. And the point being, make sure you have your own and make sure it gives you enough energy to get out of bed. So that's the first foundational principle, vision and purpose. The second one is core values, or how are we expected to behave? And again, very, very similar to vision and purpose, core values are going to be radically different from organization to organization to organization. Now, Patrick Lencioni talks about what he calls permission to play core values. For example, honesty or integrity. Yeah, so that's a non-negotiable. Like you have to be honest, right? You have to be full of integrity. But there's other ones where it could be extremely important to one person and not as important to another person. So have some clarity on how you want your team to behave. Do you want them to be continually pursuing clinical excellence through CE? Do you want them to be highly empathetic and compassionate? Do you want them to be team players? Do you want them to be humble? Do you want them to be have an ownership mindset? Do you want them to be influential? Like, again, there's a lot of really good answers here, and there's no wrong answer, but you have to have absolute clarity with how you're expecting your team to behave. Because if you don't have core values that are listed out and very, very well defined, then you start to run into ambiguity when you're evaluating someone as far as, are they a good fit for my organization? So make sure you have your core values listed out. Make sure they're well defined, extremely well defined. Make sure you have examples of what these core values are like, and make sure that you're evaluating your team on a regular basis on these core values. So that's foundational principle number two. Number one was vision and purpose. Number two is core values. Number three is what Gino Wickman from EOS calls the accountability chart, or some of you guys have heard it called the organizational chart. And the accountability chart is a super important tool and foundational principle for me, my organization, and my clients. It's really creates tremendous clarity on who's doing what, who's responsible for who, what are the roles and responsibilities of every seat that we're in. And it's interesting, when you first start off in business, there's so many things to do, right? Let's call them hats or seats. There's probably like 50 of them, right? So you need to be the dentist. You need to be the person that's answering the phone. You need to be the accounts receivable person, the accounts payable person. You need to be the HR person, and on and on and on. And when you're starting off and you're not very busy, there's one or two or three people that are wearing all of these hats. Well, as you grow and as you bring on more team members and as you start to delegate responsibility, you start to realize that, wow, I'm really busy as a clinician. I'm really busy as the dentist. I'm wearing the dentist hat. I can't do the HR hat. I can't do the accounts receivable hat. I can't do the answering the phone hat, whatever it is. I can't do the IT hat. I can't do the marketing hat. So you start to expand, and it's really, really difficult to expand unless you have absolute clarity with how many hats are involved in your business and what are the roles and responsibilities associated with each of those hats. So super, super important. The other part of the accountability chart is it gives absolute clarity with, okay, who's the leader of this team? It could be a small office and maybe you as the dentist are the leader. Maybe you have a team of 5 or 6 or 7. Or if you have multiple locations or a big flagship office, maybe you have team leads and people know who to report to. So you really need to have tons of clarity with your accountability chart, who's reporting to who, who's responsible for what. When you don't, and it's just chaos, and I hear this all the time, especially with new clients, everybody comes to me. I put out every fire. I deal with every issue. Well, the reason being, I'm, pointing the finger back at you, is because you have not over communicated who's in charge of what. And then you have not trained up those people that you had put into those leadership positions. A lot of times we think as docs, I'm just going to hire this really experienced office manager and she'll take all of this stuff off my plate. It rarely happens unless you over communicate and you train up and you delegate responsibility. So again, let's rewind the tape. Number 1, foundational principle, vision and purpose. Number 2, core values. Number 3, the accountability chart. Number 4 is this concept of, for me, this concept of winning, right? You guys have heard me talk about this on the podcast before, but we use a concept called the winning pyramid, and that's actually the 5th foundational principle. But the top of the winning pyramid is what we call winning. People need to know if they're winning or not. And my definition of winning is 3 parts. It's the data, or what we would call scorecard, right? It's the rallying cry, which is what is the most important thing that the office needs to be doing right now. And it's the winning statement, or a vision statement. And it's a 2 to 3 sentence paragraph that really subjectively summarizes what it means like to feel really good about coming to work. And I have podcasts that we unpack all of that stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it now. But the 4th foundational principle is getting absolute clarity with the 3 components of winning. Again, data, objective data. We're not only focused on the numbers, but we have to focus some energy on the numbers. The rallying cry, what is the absolute most important thing that this office needs to do right now? And then the winning statement, which leads into the 5th foundational principle, the winning pyramid. So again, I have presentations and podcasts on this, but the winning pyramid has winning on top. That's our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is winning. And I just told you what the 3 components of winning are. Excuse me. But what leads to winning? So if it's a pyramid, winning's at the top. What's at the bottom, right? Well, it's built on trust and vulnerability. And you guys have heard me talk ad nauseam about the importance of trust and vulnerability amongst your team. You cannot win unless there is a level of trust and vulnerability amongst the people that work. When you have a level of trust and vulnerability, you move on to the next level, which is healthy debate. You can have conversations at meetings. You can have conversations in the hallway. You can have conversations in one-on-ones where we're debating what's best for everybody, and we're open and we're honest, and we feel like we can be honest because we trust each other. We know that we're all here for the same reason. Once we have that great healthy debate, we ultimately commit to something, right? So it's one thing to talk and debate things, but unless we actually commit to something, then it was just a waste of time. So we have healthy debates during meetings, and then we absolutely commit to something. And then once we all commit to something, we need to have the next level, which is peer-to-peer accountability. So it's making sure that everyone on the team is not necessarily going and tattling to the leader. Someone's not doing their job. It's going into the storm. It's having peer-to-peer accountability conversations with someone, and basically from a position of empathy, from a position of curiosity, going to someone and saying, "Hey, Mary, we committed to this last week at our meeting, but I'm noticing you're not doing that. What's up with that? Tell me about that. What's going on here?" Right? That's peer-to-peer accountability. And when you can do those four things, develop trust and vulnerability, have healthy debate, commit to something, have peer-to-peer accountability, you will always, always, always win. So foundational principle number one, vision and purpose. Number two, core values. Number three, accountability chart. Number four, defining winning. And then number five, the winning pyramid. The sixth foundational principle that I really emphasize during relationships with my coaching clients is a meeting cadence, right? Now I'm talking about one-on-one meetings. I'm talking about same page meetings between the doctor and an operations person, or the doctor and an office manager. I'm talking about team meetings, and I'm talking about whole office meetings. And we've spent tons of time talking about the importance of these meetings, about the agenda to make sure that the meetings are extremely productive. A few weeks ago, I shared a couple episodes on how important and a good structure for informal and formal one-on-ones. It's all about the relationship. And when we choose not to dedicate time and energy to those one-on-one meetings, to the relationship, the wheels start to come off. So, we could spend a couple hours talking about meeting cadences, the different types of meetings, and the agendas associated with those meetings. But that's the sixth foundational principle that I believe in. The seventh one is core processes, right? And this is going to be very, very different from office to office. So this is basically systems, right? Everyone's always reaching out to me, "Jason, send me your system on dot, dot, dot." Yeah, I have no problem sending you my AR system, my HR system, my new patient experience system, my how we set up the endo room system. But it's not going to do you any good because your ecosystem is very, very different than mine. The way that you take a new patient call and the information that you get is going to be very different than mine. Now, I can send you our core processes. I can send you my systems just to get your creative juices going, but you need to have documented systems and documented core processes on how your organization works. I do not believe in a robust 1,000-page operation manual that collects dust in the corner. It should be a living, breathing document, either through Google Docs or through some type of wiki page. But it's constantly getting new life breath breathed into it. Everything from, your marketing system to how we're handling prospective new patient calls, to how we're presenting treatment, to how we're interviewing and hiring and firing, AR, accounts payable, like all you need systems, right? You need processes documented. And again, like what I tend to do with my clients is not start from the beginning, right? I want to know what their biggest pain point is right now. And that's what I'll coach you up on, right? So if you say to me, "Jason, the new patient flow is great. I have some really good dentists and good hygienists that are working with me. But man, my AR is out of control," right? Boom. There we go. Let's work on the AR system right now. We'll get that dialed in, and then we'll move on to the next pain point, and then the next pain point. And then next thing you know, you've actually developed your quote unquote operations manual because you've worked through all of the systems that are important to you. So that's foundational principle number 7. Number 8 is servant leadership. So again, this is, you've heard me talk about this multiple times, but you need to be the leader that your team needs, that your team wants, that are going to grow people, that are going to allow people to become the best version of themselves. And the way I teach servant leadership is based in love. And we have 8 principles of agape love. You've heard me talk about them multiple times before. I'm not going to break them down here, but it's really, really important that you are providing the leadership that your team needs. And leadership traditionally is an ambiguous thing. It's a subjective thing. And I've tried my best to really make it black and white, to really make it objective, and to just kind of narrow it down or distill it down into some cliff notes. It comes down to character development, which is doing the right thing, even when you don't want to. Life is not a moral dilemma. Like, you know what you should be doing. You just don't have the courage to do it. So character development is developing the courage to do the right thing, even when you don't want to do it. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, what is the right thing? Well, the right thing is practicing the 8 principles of agape love. It's showing patience and everything that's involved with that. It's showing kindness and everything that's involved with that. It's showing humility and everything that's involved with that, all the way through to honesty. And what do we mean by honesty? To tell the truth and be free from deceit. If someone's struggling, you have to let them know. So there's specific systems for each of those 8 principles of agape love. And day after day after day after day, you're going to practice and you're going to practice it, just like you're doing bicep curls, just like you're practicing the piano. And it's going to be awkward at first. You're going to be sore. It's going to be painful. But the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And the next thing you know, you're the leader that your team needs. So that's foundational principle number 8. Foundational principle number 9 is the ideal week template. We all have a finite amount of time, right? We want to spend time at work. We want to spend time with our family. We want to spend time on self-care. We want to spend time with our friends. We want to spend time with our hobbies. And I just find that many new clients to me have no ownership of their schedule. They don't have any clarity on when they're supposed to be working, when they're supposed to be at home with their kids, when they're supposed to be engaged with their wife, have no time for health, for wellness, for any of these things. So it's so important to make sure that you have an ideal week template. Give your week direction. Schedule yourself in 15-minute blocks throughout the entire week. Now it'll never be perfect, right? There's going to be things that come up where you can't maintain this perfect schedule. But as you go through it week after week after week, you'll start to figure out, okay, I need to give myself a little bit more time here, or I don't need as much time here. And then you'll start to realize, and this is such an important concept, you'll start to realize that you're running out of capacity. You'll start to realize that every time you say yes to something, you're automatically saying no to something else, because time is a finite commodity. No one realizes this until they actually put their ideal week together. They develop their template and they do everything that they can. They fight like hell to keep it. Now, if you can maintain as close to your ideal week template, let's say 85 to 90%, you're going to be so successful. You're going to crush life. But when you let the day take over your schedule, that's when the wheels start to come off. So you need to commit to an ideal week schedule. How many hours a week are you working at the chair? How many hours a week are you working on the business? How many hours a week are you doing one-on-ones? Are you working on system development, deep work, shallow work? How many hours a week are you worked on your faith, your mind, your health and wellness, the 4 futures? We talked about that in a podcast episode a few weeks ago. Create an ideal week. It's a game changer. And then the final foundational principle is cash flow analysis. So we get these P&Ls, and sometimes we can read them and sometimes we can't read them. And more often than not, the P&L says, "Hey, I'm doing pretty good," right? Because dentistry, it's hard to not do well, right? And sometimes that's part of the problem. Good is the enemy of great, so to speak. And I'm not talking about a P&L. I'm talking about a true cash flow analysis, because what I run into is clients, they do a lot of adjusted production. They may have a little bit of grasp on their expenses. More often than not, they don't. They don't understand what percentage of their money is dedicated towards supplies or towards lab or towards wages. But even to complicate things more, they don't take into account their debt. They don't take into account their tax payments. They don't take into account um, putting money away for emergency funds or capital expenditures. And they wonder, my accountant is telling me I had a great month, but there's no money in the bank account. And why is that? Well, that's because you're looking at a P&L and you're not looking at a cash flow analysis. The other side of this coin is you may feel you're running a good business because there's money in the bank, but when you truly figure out that you're getting paid as a clinician and not as a business owner, you're just an employee of your own business. The actual business is not making money. You're only making money as a clinician. You start to kind of scratch your head and being like, I'm locked in to this business. If you were to replace yourself with an associate, you'd be broke. So the cash flow analysis really starts to unpack, where's this money going? And am I running a business or am I just an employee? And when you start to analyze those numbers, you start to get some clarity on, okay, if I ever really wanted to get away from the chair and find associates to help take over some of this load, I'd really have to fine tune some other things, because I don't think the money would be there to do it. So that's it. Those are the 10 foundational principles. Again, just one more time. Number 1, vision and purpose. Number 2, core values. Number 3, accountability chart. Number 4, the definition of winning. Number 5, the winning pyramid. Number 6, meeting cadences. Number 7, core processes and systems. Number 8, servant leadership. Number 9, the ideal week. And number 10, cash flow analysis. If you have any questions about any of those, if you want to see some documentation or go back and re-listen to some podcasts or watch the presentations that I have available on dentallighthouse.com that talk about any of these things in great detail, please check it out. Reach out to me. I can help you understand where those things are located. But really, really important foundational principles. Don't get me wrong. Putting out fires are important too. But once the dust settles and once you've put out a few fires, always taking a step back and refocusing on these principles and making sure they're dialed in, that's when the true magic happens. All right, guys, love you. Reach out if you have any questions or concerns. My contact information is on the website, thedentallighthouse.com, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.